What's up? How you doing? Here we are, a beautiful morning today, early Sunday morning. Nice weather today, clear skies, just a feeling of well-being. It's one of those days. Remember the old days when you were a kid, you'd shop around, back to school stuff, and then eventually you'd buy a nice lunchbox. Well, this is kind of like a lunchbox you would have if you were a construction worker or Fred Flintstone. Stanley, since 1913. Everything is metal on this. The latch is a metal. Has a thing for the thermos, which is also metal. Now, it's a solid lunchbox, but it's not that great at keeping the temperatures stable or stabilized. And cold will get warm, and warm will get cool, room temperature. But I like it, and it reminds me of the old days. This is something like the people from the 50s and 40s when they were building skyscrapers in New York. This is what they had. Nowadays, they have other material. My daughters, they have insulated lunch boxes, and they have the stuff inside that's also insulated. So if you make beef stew in the morning, I'll heat it up to about 200 degrees, and then I put it into the canisters, and it'll remain hot for 24 hours. But in the old days, you made a sandwich. That's what I had as a kid. Make a sandwich. My father would get ham or something, or bologna, or roast beef. And the night before, you'd make a sandwich, cut it diagonally. In the first grade, I had a friend of mine. He sat next to me. I was in the first row, and he was in the second row, right next to me. And I had my sandwich, and he had his, and his was always the same exact thing, day after day. It was a mortadella or bologna sandwich with, and he would have them on the side, but he would open up a bag of chips, and then he would put 5 chips on the sandwich, push it together, and have it. And I go, that's a good, I never had that, you know. I mean, I had it later on when I got older. I tried, and I go, it's not bad. But back then, I never had it. And back then, I was a chocolate milk guy. Every Friday, the teacher would say, by show of hands, who wants white milk? And then you'd raise your hand. If you wanted chocolate, you'd raise your hand. I always wanted a chocolate. So nowadays, which I don't really have milk anymore because I'm not a calf. But nowadays, if I ever have once in a blue moon, if I ever have a little bit of chocolate milk, it reminds me of first grade. Yeah, they made us eat lunch in the classroom in first grade. We had a lunch monitor that would show up, and she would just watch us. In third grade, we had our cafeteria break. We'd go downstairs, and I sat near the door that would lead to the outside recess playground. But after that, we would go upstairs, and there was a lunch monitor. Heavy-set lady, had 1950s hairstyle. And she taught us the game 7-Up. 7-Up. So everybody puts their head on the table, cover your eyes, and then they'd pick 7 people. They'd be up at the front, and they'd tap you, and you had to guess who tapped you. And if you got it right, you became the tapper. Well, I would cheat. I would put my head near the edge of the table with my face facing down, and I would make a little triangle shape, and I would look down and see the shoes of the person that touched me, and I would always get it right. I'd say, that was you. And I knew because I would see the shoes. So they never caught on. I don't know. Nobody thought of that. They never said, hey, just look at the shoes, put your head on the edge of the table. So then when I would pick people, in case they were doing my trick, I would tap them from behind, tap them back here. They wouldn't be able to see my shoes no matter where their eyeballs were. But yeah, 7-Up. Third grade. When I was in the third grade, I thought I was a lot older than when I look at third graders now. I see third graders now, and they look like miniature people. But when I was in the third grade, I felt like I was, you know, big, old, and that wasn't the case. I remember being in the third grade. We would return back from the cafeteria, and they had us line up single file. And while we were waiting there, the kindergartners would leave their classroom to go somewhere, and I would look at them and I would say, "Wow, they are so small. They are so." And I was in the third grade, and they looked small to me. Anyway, yeah, the years, they flew by. I don't know where they went, but yeah, lunchboxes were a big deal. In the first grade, I had the Bruins. They were a good team, you know. I had the Bruins, and my uncle took me, you know, everything was closing down, and we drove by an A&P, and the guy had put the key in to lock the A&P grocery store, and my uncle gave him a signal, like, "Yeah, we got to get something." And the guy opens up, he goes, "What do you need?" And my uncle goes, "I need to get him a lunchbox. School starts tomorrow." And the guy said, "Okay, they're right there in the front. Be quick." And I was thinking, man, I want to make a good decision here. I need time. So I go in there and I'm being pressured, you know, what to pick, and I'm not finding anything that's jumping out at me. And my uncle recommends, "Get the Bruins." He goes, "That's a good team." So I ended up getting the Bruins. And then, you know, if you see pictures of me from those years, I mean that year, you will see me with the Bruins lunchbox. But then the second half of the year, I became a huge fan of the $6 Million Man show, and I was out in Woolworths, and I saw the $6 Million Man lunchbox, and I said to my father, I said, "Hey, can I get that?" And he said, "Sure." I thought he was going to say, "Oh, you already have a lunchbox. Why do you want another one?" But he goes, "Yeah, get it." So I got it, and then the second half of the year, I had the $6 Million Man, which I was a huge fan of. That's one actor that I would love to meet or even see in real life, and so far I haven't. I was so obsessed with that show. I mean, I had, you know, when you see something or when you hear something like a song, or you smell a fragrance and it gives you a feeling inside. A lot of encounters in life, they don't give you that feeling, but the $6 Million Man gave me that feeling inside. It's tough to describe. You couldn't describe it. It's just a feeling. But it would give me this feeling that occasionally, when I see the opening credits now, I will I will feel that again, very briefly. Yeah, I used to, like right now, I'm feeling it a little bit. I used to see the opening credits with the arm, you know, that arm that they developed at UCLA, and the eyeball beholding that lens, and it gave me a feeling inside, and I was hooked. Like, I was hooked. I can't even tell you how hooked I was on that show. I've said this before, but I used to run in slow motion, thinking that I was really running fast when others were looking at me. And realistically, I knew that wasn't the case, but but I convinced myself that it was, just to keep the illusion going. You know, I ran in slow motion. Everybody probably said, "There's that idiot kid again running by in slow motion." I thought I was actually improving. But the thing is, you know what? When I was playing Relivio, I knew the difference. I knew that I couldn't run that way and not get caught. So I ran regular speed, but I also believed that by running in slow motion, it improved my speed when I was running in real life, in real time speed, in real speed, you know, like fast. And it was one of those weird things, because I was the fastest kid in my class for a few years in a row. Fastest kid, they couldn't get me. Played Relivio. We used to do races against each other, and I was always coming out at the top, even though I was not the tallest kid. But I was able to beat the tallest kid. I had a kid in my class, he was much taller than me. He was fast, had those long legs like a, you know, sprinter. And the gym teacher would always put me and him together to race each other, and I would always beat him. So I had good speed and I had good endurance. You know, I could last a long time running. And so I would race him and I would win, and everybody would pick me when they had to pick a team, whatever the team was, whether it was kickball, relevio, squash, anything. I was always getting picked first because I had speed. I was like really quick. And kickball was baseball but with kicking the ball. I loved playing kickball, and it was very popular as a kid. You know what wasn't popular? Soccer. I'm not a fan of soccer. I mean, to me it looks like a bunch of ants carrying a rice grain around back and forth on the field. So, you know, and plus when I was a kid, soccer was not, like, it's popular now. A lot of kids play it. But when I was a kid, it was not that popular. I remember the gym teacher in the 8th grade would say, we're going to do soccer today. And I'd be like, oh man, let me sit down on this one. I couldn't stand it. You know, I was more into the kickball, baseball, stickball, things like that, running. But soccer was like number 500 on my list of 400. Never liked it. When I was a kid, my father took me to a local soccer game, and even now I think about it and I go, man, I don't know how I got through that day. Just not a fan of that sport. So that's it. I'm gonna go in, I don't know, make some coffee, and later on I gotta go to the mall, buy some items. So I'll be back later on and maybe make another video. We'll see. So that's it for now. Ciao.